So Julie and I have been in this industry combined now for over 35 years. We started out as spa and complementary therapists. We developed into brand trainers. I wrote a book a few years ago. Julie consults with some of the most influential and leading, exciting, impactful industry experts. So it's fantastic to be collaborating together. But one thing that we found that we had in common, and our connection came through lockdown meet on LinkedIn. We are freelance educators, so we have that very deep connection to teams, but from a different perspective, from a different angle. And one thing that drew us together was this sense of a need for something more for our teams, for our therapists. And you will probably all in this room know exactly the pointers that I'm kind of talking about here. So what we did was we created a wellbeing program for therapists or for hospitality staff members, which is based on a method that's very short, sharp, sweet. We know that time is precious in our industry, but really tackled self-care issues and practices of work to help your team feel motivated, inspired, and energized. I'm going to play you a little clip now. This is after one of our introductory Zoom sessions. I'll just play you quite an organic kind of summary to this session.
I'd love to know how you felt with our mini-taster session of the Iron Wellness method. Would anyone like to share anything?
I felt really emotional. When we came to the heart, I was like, oh wow. And then coming up into the throat and third eye, I really felt like a big release. Even though it wasn't a lot of tears necessarily, I just got very emotional in general, in a good way, like a good positive release way. And that just tells me that I need to do this more often. I'm not doing it enough.
Exactly, I completely relate to what you're going through.
So, you might recognise the person on the screen is this lady here sitting up in front of you. Rosie will introduce in a moment that fundamentally the outcome of one of our sessions was that Rosie got very deeply impacted by the experience. It was quite transformational for you. And we just want to tap into, first and foremost, who you are, why you're here, and some of those light bulb moments that got you to this place.
So Rosie is the founder of Party Spa, but she's been a senior spa therapist and a therapist for many years. And we really would love you to bring us some insight into what was your light bulb moment. What was going on for you at that time to have that profound experience?
So I feel like self-care is a thing that's being spoken about a lot at the moment, and especially as a therapist when you're giving a lot all the time. It's a very emotional experience. It's a very physical job as well. And I was very excited to do this because I love the industry and I'm so grateful that these beautiful people were offering something for therapist wellbeing. So that's what drew me to it. And I feel like I'm always trying to learn ways how I can look after myself, like how I look after my clients. And yeah, the light bulb thing for me was, wow, I suppress my emotions, I don't acknowledge them enough, and I definitely need to do this more often and find a daily self-care ritual to make sure that I'm giving my best. Because you can't pour from an empty cup.
We hear that saying a lot in our industry, yet we always seem to manage to pour from the dregs at the bottom of the glass every single day.
Okay, so Rosie, after that, did you take any steps or make any changes to your life from that moment forward?
I did, yes. So as you said, I've been working in the spa industry for six years now, and I decided that I would drop my hours, be full-time, and I'd build up my own business. That's what I decided to do.
Okay. So you basically you tried to focus on stepping back.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
What was the impact of that? Why was that decision made?
So I love the industry, and I've had experience in many different styles, so I'm not sort of pinpointing anyone in particular or saying that it's negative or anything like that. It's just my personal experience, hearing from other therapists what their experiences have been, and I basically just decided that I wanted to create something of my own, to have more of a one-to-one connection with my clients, have more time with them, really make that bond with them, and to make profound changes. So that's the reason why I decided to build up my own business. Give me the opportunity to be creative.
I'd love to know how.
So obviously, I mean, we know, and Rosie exudes, what we would all picture as this ideal therapist, this beautiful, heart-giving, qualified, intuitive therapist.
Thank you.
And I think one of our big questions is how can we keep these types of therapists in our spas? Rosie's made a decision to build her own business, to also work in a spa as well, but there's this flexi staffing, and this is quite a popular thing now, but how do we, we're going to explore how we kind of retain the best in our spas. So who do we want to give a voice to? So obviously by now you probably know it's therapists, but as our project's evolved over the last 2 years, Julie and I have interviewed over 30 spa professionals and business leaders, therapists, trainers, managers, consultants, and we've really seen a niche kind of need for not just therapist well-being, but spa managers well-being as well. So we give a voice to therapists, management, holistic therapists, complementary therapists, industry governing bodies, from a grassroots level, because often what we experience is implementation from a top-tier level. And we've come in right at the grassroots, being in that treatment room with those teams for 8 hours, solid, day in, day out, whether it's brand training, therapist wellbeing training, we're right at the root of what's happening in that treatment room. So that leads me on to Julie's.
Yeah. So with that in mind, I have a question for you. So if you would like to take a few minutes to read that statement. Is it sort of setting off any memory bells? When do you imagine that could have been written? So who thinks that was written 1 year ago? Who thinks it was written 3 years ago?
So everybody's
So everybody's going to go for more than 5 years? Yeah? Yeah, actually it was written in 2014 in the spa business. And, in fact, the article went on and it didn't just talk about pay packages. And I guess what I should say is that I am a hoarder. I hoard old copies of spa business. Because what I actually find is sometimes by looking back, we can get inspiration to move forward. So with that, perhaps we can go to the next slide. And here again are some more statements. Again, one of the mistakes the industry makes is not to differentiate pay between experienced therapists and the young, inexperienced ones. Salary should be linked to skill set. Who disagrees? Anybody disagree with that? No? Okay, next one. Advanced therapists who have a number of different skills should be empowered to create bespoke treatments. How do you actually allow your therapist to get involved in the creation of treatments? Who makes that part of their... Great, okay, lovely, yeah. I mean, as a trainer as well, we love to get therapists involved in being creative. And I think it's a great way as well to see who you've got on your team and what their talents are. And sometimes we uncover hidden talents. The next statement was we also need better managers to support the team, who understand their skills, as well as the emotional piece therapists get from clients. And this is not me, this is not us saying this is coming from a very prominent lady in the business. So do you train your staff on emotional intelligence? Is that something that is of interest to you going forward? Because if you were in the room this morning, we had that talking about looking at the under the radar trend with younger people coming into the spa, but we've also got our younger therapists that we shouldn't forget as well. So I just want to share something here. Spa manager said to me once that a therapist came up to her and said, "Oh my God, that client just did a massive mental brain dump in my treatment room, and I don't know what to do with it." The spa manager didn't really know what to say to her. It's quite challenging for them. So actually, to put this on our timeline, those statements were written by Sue Harmsworth, and they were in the Spa Business Handbook from 2021 to 2022. So here we are, 10 years on from that first statement, 2014, and I think it's safe to say that we are still facing some of those issues with trying to be able to retain and attract top talent. And we are disruptors. We admit it, don't we, darling? We do like to disrupt. We want to ask the question why. Is this something that's never going to go away? Is there something absolutely nothing we can do about it? It's just endemic. Or, are we going to be having the same conversation in 10 years? So what could we be doing together to learn from each other to actually be able to change that? And we would like to share with you now our take on this.
So you'll see here Julie in full training mode. Look at that smile. My slogan is "Be More Julie" because I don't know what happens when Julie hosts a team of therapists, but they all come alive. And you've got first-hand experience of that, Rosie, as well. The picture really does say it all. Julie inspires, educates, innovates these teams, and it's fantastic that the spas have support of either brand trainers or consultants to support the therapists, because obviously you guys are great at doing this, but the reality is that you have such a heavy workload, so many demands on your plate, budgets to hit and targets to look at and all sorts going on, and we really are here to look at what we can do to create this thriving working environment. Now we know that there are major systemic business hurdles when trying to create this thriving environment. That's no news to us. Is it news to you? Is there always something that you think could be done to support more that just doesn't get done, or do you just don't have the capacity for, or that you don't even think about? Everyone just cracks on with their day in, day out. So, work culture, hierarchy systems, this is the business framework, and it sets precedents on how everyone needs to behave and operate. But it's quite limiting for our therapists, because our therapists, I really believe, are cut from a different cloth. There does need to be a level of intimacy in the spa team for therapists to be inspired. We often say that a good spa therapist is an empath, a healer. They need to go inwards, they need to be nurtured, they're sensitive, maybe needy. I often hear a lot about therapists being like little children that need to be nurtured in the team. We all experience this on some level. But what I really want to pick at is all these words kind of sound positive, but actually what we've created is a culture of powerless, because these therapists are actually powerless when they're put into this little pigeonholed, sensitive, needy, empathic box. And therapists don't like being put in a box, as we've realised. The field is actually full of confident, creative, expressive, entrepreneurial characters. We're suppressing potentially their voice and their talents, and we need to really go a little bit deeper here and look at this. On the other hand, we have therapists that go to work, do the job, clock off, go home, live their lives, and they're fine.
I don't think that that's something that is in them. I think that's something that comes as their needs not being met. So they come into the industry excited, and then as time goes on, they go, it's my job, clock in, clock out. I think that's something that can happen.
So do you think there's an element of numbing down and kind of being resigned to the job?
Yeah, absolutely. It becomes just a physical act of just going to deliver these treatments, get the day done, and then I go home. When actually people join the industry not to do that. It's much more heartfelt than that. It seems to make a difference. So when you've got 10 treatments to do back to back with no time in between, you don't feel nurtured, you don't feel like you're giving your best. So there's a lot to be said there.
And I'm sure a lot of the managers in this room hear that a lot. Do you agree with that statement? Just give me a show of hands if you've heard that statement before, that similar premise. No? Yes? So, again, to us, to managers that hear it day in, day out, like, yeah, I know, but what can I do? There's something I can do about it, just crack on. And this is the little nugget right there is what we are tackling, because I don't believe that's enough, and I don't believe that is good enough. And it's hard to hear that, or it's hard to even say it from my point of view, but there is more that we can do, and that we are doing, to make this environment such a beautiful, loving, thriving space where people communicate and understand each other a little bit better. Just tell me a little bit about more detailed work, Rosie?
So I went into the industry, you know what I did, it was to make a difference, to be caring, but then I, not long ago, did further training in treating people going through cancer, which is becoming much more of a thing now, where stars are bringing that training in, which is excellent. So that's something that's very close to my heart, I'm really passionate about it. And it shows us that the power of touch can be so profound for people, and that just that touch, that nurture for that client is way more profound than maybe talking therapy session. So yeah, I'd say
So that's where you find your power.
yes, definitely you're powerful, not powerless.
So, I mean, I think again there's something to look at with young therapists, because we often see that they're not taught these crucial skills around talking and communicating alongside the touch element. So it is that mute, don't speak for 8 hours. I've been there. So sometimes after a day at the spa, I come home and I would say to my then boyfriend, I just can't even speak, my tongue doesn't work anymore, I haven't used it all day, so it doesn't work. Or on the flip side, I would come home after a day at the spa and not be able to shut up because I hadn't spoken all day, and it was just this weird stream of energy coming out of my throat. So, you know, more now than ever, I think that we need to upskill our teams in the power of communication alongside touch.
We're not trained up from the start, are we? Like other therapists aren't trained how to, you know, deal with the emotions of other people, how they can look after themselves, and that. Yeah.
So something we've also observed is sort of this connection between spa and wellness, which are two words that are very much combined now and have been for the last 5 years plus. And spa and wellness are buzzwords now to sort of guest experience. They're expecting wellness with spa and they're expecting spa with wellness. But actually, when we look a little bit deeper again, we see that wellness and spa are actually rooted fundamentally differently. That's a mouthful. So we are actually in this slight battle with wellness professionals not being able to cope well in a spa environment, and vice versa, spa professionals not being upskilled to adapt to a wellness environment. And I do think we are seeing a bit of a lack of training around deeper healing concepts, deeper spiritual concepts, deeper spiritual practices that our guests are now starting to want and need and expect from the spa experience, which, let's face it, 10 plus years ago was just a system of robing up, wet spa, have your treatment or your lunch or your prosecco, relax, go home, thank you, goodbye. And that is not what is needed anymore. So that again, we need to look at how our therapists are skilled in different areas and maximise their skill set. So if you have a more holistic therapist, use their skills and allow them to be powerful in their skill set. And if you have a more spa or beauty inclined therapist, maximise their skill set. So you are putting that inspiration into their hands. So Julie.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of things hopefully there that we've given you to inspire you. I mean, I suppose, you know, there's always the elephant in the room, isn't there? And for me, often it's, how do we take care of that therapist? Is it our responsibility or is it their responsibility? You know, where do we draw the line there? So, you know, if we feed them well, we treat them well, will they be less sick, less burnt, and less bored out? So that, for me, is something that I always look for that opportunity. Where is the opportunity where we can make that change? And when you start to sort of notice that they're really unmotivated, they're really frustrated, they're living on, somewhere recently, they said, oh, we don't like staff canteen food, it's not very nice, so we're going down to the garage to buy something for the local petrol station. I'm thinking, wow, and then you've got to sit through another how many hours of training with me and then perform. And it's like, they're not fueling themselves, but where does that start and end? Do we need to be looking at our menus in our canteens and thinking about, should we be offering opportunities? But what if they don't take it? You know, where does that lie? Do we then need to go back and inspire them to want to take care of themselves? And you know, is it our responsibility as well as managers or leaders, you know, not to be chugging back the Red Bull or the Diet Coke or whatever else it is, but should we be example. These are all very, say, delicate questions, but I think there's definitely something that needs to be addressed, because as a nutritional therapist as well, I can see what's on their plate, and I know that it's not going to get them through their day. And I know that it's not going to put them at their best. They're going to be on the sugar roller coaster, and that also impacts then their mood, it impacts their performance. And I could go into many more. But Rosie, we have to sort of say, how do you feel about that? If you were a young therapist and I suddenly said to you, right, I think you should be eating this, what would you say to me? Is that something that you would be open to?
It would, but I'd be wondering, do I have time? Because the reality is, if you have half an hour lunch, you might have spent 10 minutes talking to your client. By the time you walk downstairs, it's been 5 minutes. Then you have 10 minutes to tweet, then you're back up again. But I think it's very important. I definitely like that. That's great.
But do you feel there's a lack of knowledge about nutrition and about how it impacts your performance at work?
Yeah, definitely I do. And not drinking enough water and having enough breaks in the day to have that. What can happen is you're left with a very mediocre spa offering. You know, therapists aren't doing their best because they're not feeling mentally energized enough offering.
So, Louise Sells, where are we? We're back on Louise Sells. Louise Sells from the Industry Support Network. Therapists are realising that they are worthy of more and capable of achieving more. Help them discover and develop what they love doing and are passionate about. Build their vision. This is an interesting and Spa Systems podcast interview that we did. It's on our YouTube channel, so if you want to watch the full one, please check it out. Because we've had a recent revelation here with this desire and passion to support these teams. Julie, do you want to input?
Yeah, I was really shocked. So I was talking to a spa manager about being here today, and I was saying, I really want to understand, what's the latest thing that you faced? And she said, well, I made all this time, I created this space, and they didn't want it. Didn't want it. She said, I went down to the basement, and they're all sitting there on the floor on their mobile phones, and I couldn't believe it. And I said, well, do you have a theory on that? Why do you think that might be? And she said, actually, they don't want to be in this world, they want to be in that world. That's where they feel safe. And not to lay another thing at COVID's front door, but she said during the pandemic, this was their entire world, their friends. So I was like, oh, so we're giving the opportunity, and yet it's not being taken. So Rosie, another great opportunity there to say about how, is that something that you might have noticed, or when the spa does go out its way to give, are therapists not just taking up the opportunities?
Yeah, there definitely can be a lack of motivation if certain things have not been put in place beforehand, and then when things are being put in, they don't always take those opportunities. And I do think the younger therapists in the industry coming in, they are very reliant on phones, but then again, there's a lack of education on, again, self-well-being, of not going to your phone, other ways that we can improve our wellness. But yeah, it's definitely something I've seen.
So I think as well, when we think of the content that we're exposing ourselves to on our phones and social media, what's happening now is real evidence and statistics around our brain chemistry being impacted and changing. And it's changing the way that we interact, it's changing the way that we communicate, and it's changing the way that we comprehend information. So yes, we know our attention spans are very short with these young girls in the spa. They're very short, they're disengaging, they are actually borderline needing that dopamine hit. So is it an issue of addiction to their electronics, to their social media? It's a brain chemistry change that's happening in a whole generation of new therapists that are coming through our colleges. All right, so Leslie Nathan, is she here with us or is she in the other room? Lovely Leslie. So Leslie we interviewed again on one of our podcasts, and Leslie said the biggest challenge is bringing people back into our industry, especially there as there are many more hotels opening up, spas, or expanding their existing offering.
So that was actually a couple of years ago, so we were just post-pandemic again there. Is it still relevant? What do you think? Is that something that's still relevant today? Are you still facing those challenges? Yeah? If we are still facing that, can we also think, could there be something more going on as well here? rather than just laying it at the door of those terrible 2 years? What do you think?
I think we need to go a little bit deeper now into some solutions, Jules.
Yeah.
So, how do we retain and attract our talent? And again, you've probably heard this before, this is a topic that is not new, but hopefully we can give you some nuggets of inspiration in how to make small changes in your team. So let's look at the ideal world here. Good career planning, involving therapists in your business, showing you care, training as a long-term strategy, professional recognition. We are essential to the operation of the business. And we can go into much more detail. So for example, good career planning. Show therapists there's a career path within the industry, because otherwise they'll just say, what am I going to do for the next 20 to 40 years? Just be a therapist? Well, that's not going to happen, because in 5 years I've got a repetitive strain injury, and I'm aching, and I'm resentful, and I'm tired, and I hate everyone. Give me the calibre bully, give me my Instagram. Right? So,
yeah. I mean, I think as well, it's a shame that we have this two things going on at the moment next door, talking about the whole touchless therapists as well. How interesting it can be going forward to think about those career path changes by looking at what is coming down the line with technology training. It's not going away, it's going to be there. There's an opportunity there as well to either draw new people into the industry with a different kind of career. And is there also a way to say, right, well, there's so many new things coming along, that could also be somewhere where we can grow our therapists within that new sort of situation where we've got different kinds of treatments coming along, we've got the AI coming along, and I suppose technically speaking, we look vertical, don't we, when we look at our business units, we're looking at a vertical. But I was talking to a spa manager recently, and I was like, could we look across? Could we look differently at and see where the talents lie? Because if there are going to be changes, as we've heard earlier on with the trends and things moving, can we find people to bring into a spa from other units? They may not be there full time, but they could be there. So where is our talent? Where is our talent pool? And are we looking to find that talent pool with our teams? What is their unique brilliance? Where is it?
Rosie, did you get career planning opportunities where you work?
So from quite early on when I joined a particular spa, I said I really want to progress. Like, how can I do that? Can you give me feedback? I'm open to learn. And at that time, there weren't that many progression opportunities, which I completely understand. But I felt like I was ready to learn and grow. And then when the opportunity presented itself, I kind of already made my decision or was thinking about ways I could build that myself.
So the question, I guess, is, are managers capturing staff when they're hungry, and there may not be job opportunities or job roles available? So, we put it down to a list, we'd love to, but we can't yet because we don't have this role, we don't have that role. But is there another way that we can keep our therapists engaged, inspired, and stay with us during those processes? Because therapists do want to learn and grow, but they will quickly move on and come up with other solutions, whether it be financial solutions, setting up your own business, needing that creative fulfillment elsewhere. How are we keeping our teams hungry and engaged and inspired, even if the role doesn't exist? We were going to do a little game. Should we still do the game? Our Chinese whispers game?
We could do.
Let's wait till the end.
Okay.
We'll do it at the end. I don't want to freak anyone out. Alright, so in season 2 of the Spa Sisters, we interviewed Jo Shiel from the Foster Island retreat in Ireland. And she is actually a huge advocate for therapist well-being in the workplace, and she does regular workshops with her team. So we need to show therapists there is a progression and development path. There are many different opportunities within the spa industry. Specifically for self-care and well-being, she's expanded that division in her spa. So she is a perfect example of a manager who knows the situation in her spa and is still activating people's minds, switching them on, getting them excited, doing lots of team building and lots of deeper investigative stuff with the team, because we love thinking deep, we love going deep as therapists. However, again, this is an ideal world, so how sure are we that what you are saying to your team is being interpreted in the right way? So I want to dig a bit deeper into this concept of let's communicate really well with our team, because you could have an incredible smart manager and you've got a big strategy lined out to engage with your team more, do more activities with them. But if precedents are set, if there's preconceived ideas already there, and you're trying to start something new or break through with a new idea, it can be quite brutal and challenging when your team aren't getting involved or don't show that they want to be involved, or they're just not moving, not wanting to take that step with you. So, the question is, how are we communicating? Communication and a perfect idea and a way to execute that idea is an ideal scenario. Most of the time it gets lost. And one of the things we're noticing is that there is, with every best intention, a team building or a manager who wants to create this incredible environment for their team, then you face the day-to-day operational challenges, then you have the preconceived ideas, then it gets sort of watered down a bit. Where is the communication lost? And what you could be saying and doing and showing is one thing, but you have to ask the question, are your therapists comprehending it correctly? Are they actually taking in what you're saying? Because we know this, that we're great communicators, we think, but actually it's our listening skills that as managers and leaders we need to work on. Because what we think we're putting out there and doing really well in for our therapists is actually not being received in the same way as you think it's being delivered. Do you want to expand a little bit?
Yeah, Rose, would you like to pick that up at all? Have you felt that, how do you feel about communication, like with the wellness programs, or with, is it just like on a daily basis? It's, okay, this is your day, this is your morning meeting. How is well-being being communicated to you when you're in the different places that you've been?
So I know a lot of spas now are trying to implement massage limits, which I think is a really positive step forward. Some try to make longer turnaround times, which again is really helpful because we get a moment there to breathe before rushing to the next one. But I definitely think it's something that could be worked on. I think, as you say, often it is just that's your day, off you go. It might be a morning meeting for 3 minutes of these are our VIPs, this is what you have to do, and that's it. You're just going to left your own devices. And I think as therapists we want to be creative, we want to have our say and put that forward. And when we feel like we're being heard and listened to and appreciated, that makes a huge difference as well, I think.
So, we do need to involve the teams into business. There are ways that we can do it. One of those is showing that you care. So this is Julie on a team building session.
Oh my gosh, that position cost me a lot of effort.
So be more Julie is my slogan. This is a prime example of an outside trainer coming in and having that time to be able to excite your teams, give them a break from operations and inspire them again, and reconnect them to what they love doing. I know that when I was working as a therapist 100 years ago now, that actually they were probably ahead of their game, because every therapist was encouraged to go down to the spa after work and have a steam, have an ice bucket and go for a swim. And that facility was open to all of the staff. Now yes, the last thing you want to do after a long shift is then go to the spa, but that was something that was implemented in the spa I worked in over 10 years ago. And I'm telling you now, that was the world of difference to me and my energy. After a long day at the spa, for just to know that a therapist is acknowledged as a human being and encouraged to reset their energy, make the most of those facilities, or even a limited area of facility if you've still got guest journeys happening, but how can you potentially block out time to introduce a session for your team, to use those amazing facilities that they're in every day in, day out, and actually give it back to them, pay it back to them. So training as a long-term strategy. Training is difficult, it can be challenging to squeeze those training days If I say I'm going to do a training for a day and I need 3 therapists for a minimum of 5 hours, the spa manager's thinking that's 15 hours out of treatment bookings. And doing the maths and going, I can't allocate 15 hours out of my treatment booking slots to train this team. How do we do it? How do we make time? How do we develop and make time for these teams?
So Rosie, how important do you think training is, ongoing training in, let's say, on your career path as a therapist? Do you see that as something that is highly attractive when you've got that mapped out for you in terms of the training that you can get?
I think it's probably the number one, to be honest, not only through physically treatment development, but also for self-development as well. So I'd say training is the number one thing that makes a difference, because it reminds them why they started in the first place, I'd say.
Yeah.
If you keep doing the same thing over and over again, you start to question your skill, you wonder if you're good enough, and actually by learning it keeps you interested in the field that you're in. So I'd say that that's so important, because it keeps us motivated, it makes us willing to learn, and we want to get better treatment, so 100%.
So it's absolutely essential that we bring education to life, make it fun for the teams. And then something you touched upon when we were chatting the other day is this experiential education. So what we offer and what we can help support in the business is this experiential education, not just for the teams, but for you guys as well. We are offering these programs all the time. We're doing them online, we're doing them in person, and they're called the Discover Your Inner Therapist programs. So spa managers, therapists, this is about discovering your inner therapist again, and actually training you guys into reconnecting with yourself, with your energy, with your heart, and being able to re-energize yourself with your teams together. Because ultimately, you have to lead this. You are the leaders, you are the managers, and if you are feeling defeated and drained and tired and busy and no time, your team will be a reflection of that, which can be quite a harsh reality check, I think. So with that said, do you have any feedback on what I've just said? Do you feel burnt out as managers? Is there any kind of one that would like to contribute anything there? Do you feel that there's no time? Do you feel that there is? Or just give me a raise of hands if you're tired and burnt out as a spa manager. Okay, we've got a hand. A half hand over there. A few more. You're so tired you've got your lift your hands. So, I know there's other programs and implementations for leadership, and I just want to give you a little taster now of what we do, which is kind of touching on, I guess, managing the mental dialogue, which is something that we work quite closely with in our workshops. And this is an opportunity for us to just reset our mental dialogue right now. So if you just uncross your legs, and then if everyone closes their eyes, and just sit forward a little bit so the spine's nice and strong. We're not relying on our chair for a moment. We're relying on our own spine to keep us upright and strong. Close the eyes and drop the shoulders. And place your palms in your laps, palms facing up in your laps. Take that belly breath again. So breathe in, expand your belly. And exhale, release, bring the belly back into the spine. Just notice what's happening in your internal dialogue. Ask yourself what's going on in there. How do we view ourselves? How do we perceive ourselves? How do we perceive our situation in our working environment? What are we saying to ourselves on a daily basis, in the corners of our mind? What is the narrative? Just try and tune into that narrative. Often when we do this exercise, things come up such as, I am tired, I am stressed. I don't have time. I can't do it. I shouldn't do this. You shouldn't do that. And we notice that these are quite limiting dialogues, quite limiting narratives that we live with every single day. And we're expected to lead. We're expected to hold ourselves up, deliver, perform. So now let's just look at that narrative. Capture one sentence that you say to yourselves. Think about that sentence now. And I just want you to write that down on a piece of paper or the card that we gave you. So spend one moment writing down that narrative, whether it's I am stressed, I am tired, I can't do it, I don't have time. So just jot that down on a piece of paper in front of you. Be really honest with yourself. I'm not good enough. They don't think I'm good enough. Close your eyes again, palms facing up, spine off the chair. Breathe in, belly expands. Breathe out, release and let go. And as you breathe in and your belly expands, hold on to that dialogue. Really in those words, whatever it is to you that's personal to you. Repeat internally that dialogue. And then as you breathe out, imagine that little sentence in quotation marks, just exiting your ear canal. So breathe in, think of the dialogue, and as you exhale and let it go, and let it physically leave your brain cells, leaving your ear canal, that quote exits your brain on every exhale. So breathe in, I am tired, breathe out, let it go. Do that 3 times, 3 rounds of breath. Let it go, exiting your brain.
Very good. Thank you guys for that. That's kind of like feels really weird now to go on to this last one. But we are here to share with you what we learn and all the things that we get to understand by working with wonderful people like you. And here we have some best practices, and we've been able to share this with you because it's actually from Soho House.
So Michaela, she is the UK Head of Health and Wellness for Soho House. You probably know the brand quite well. They're a global brand, but they've got a lot of properties in the UK. And she kindly shared some tips and implementations that they have at Soho House. I won't read them out because I'll just bore you to death, but please take a little look and take that in your own time. But what I will say is that we did a survey across the group, and the feedback was quite incredible because the spa therapist retention rate at one of their main properties averaged at 9 years. I want to hear a gasp. Where's the gasp? Where's my reaction? Now, I was pretty taken aback by that statistic because I thought, am I just out of touch? Because normally it's 2 years or, I don't know, what would be an average right now? Who's your longest standing therapist in your team right now, if you're proud to say it?
Myself and Sarah, we've been in the company for 10 and 7 years.
Amazing. There you go, fantastic. And would you say that's quite a normal figure? Because for me, from what I've experienced, that was quite a wowzers figure. What do you think, Rosie? Is 9 years a pretty big thing?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's amazing that we've done something right, haven't they? But yeah, no, definitely. I think We just want to feel recognised in the work that we're doing
Yeah.
and to feel appreciated, and for all those wellbeing practices to be implemented as well, to feel heard, and just for daily improvements of our day really, and for them to understand almost what we do on a daily basis as well, what it's like to be a therapist is very different from being in the office doing the other side.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think that's something I knew, is that we don't know, our therapists sometimes tell me, we don't know what the manager does. What do they do? And, sometimes as well, that could go the other way, isn't it? What do you know what goes on behind you at those therapist doors? What actually are they delivering? So, we get feedback obviously from the guests, but yeah, there's been something that's just recently that's come up that's been quite curious.
I mean, I would love to know what you do, to be honest. So get your team involved. I'd love to know.
I think that's it, isn't it? It's bridging that gap, that communication, building that trust and communication with your teams, and that not this sort of isolated operation that's happening sometimes. So I guess it's us. Follow us on YouTube and Instagram. You can contact us with any questions. If you've got any burning topics you want us to share on the podcast, please get in touch with us at sparsisterspodcast@gmail.com.
And thank you so much, Rosie, for being here and being brave to sit on the stage.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, everybody.